And all the city business owners could go around asking people what they would like doing. Like the River Fest, that was awesome. We have to work on the parking, but yeah, I'm all for that.
The third candidate to answer this question will be Mr. Jimmy Parks.
On the downtown area, we are going to have to keep it going because the businesses, they're struggling anyway. But the business people in downtown are going to have to help let us know what they want. I mean, they're going to have to furnish stuff that people want to go in and buy. And you can't go anywhere in Loudon and buy 2x4. I can't go anywhere and buy a shirt. They're going to have to come up with a program that is going to help the people of Loudon. And I think that they need to even start in on the computer side of the deal. As far as the vitalization, we need to keep it going, because if we don't have our downtown, we're out. And most of those people down there now have a good thing going. I had a space in the shops for a long time. Done good in there, and they're still doing good. And we need to keep whatever we got going now, keep it going, and help everybody in this city. Thank you.
Thank you. Our second question tonight. The answer to the second question, Mr. Soundman, will be Mr. Greenway's cut number 2. The question is, what can the council do to help the citizens of Loudon know more about their government, the services provided, and how to access these services when needed? Please play Mr. Greenway's answer. Mr. Greenway, your first question is, what can the council do to help the citizens of Loudon know more about their government, the services provided, and how to access these services when needed?
I wish I could answer that question. We have no participation at city council meetings. If they would take it upon themselves, citizens would take it upon themselves to come to the meetings, I think they would learn a lot. I've certainly learned a lot the last 4 years. When people ask questions on the street or someone calls me, I tell them the same thing. Come participate. There's no way that I can communicate to you unless you're, present at those meetings. It's just too difficult to talk to everyone on the street.
Thank you. This question next goes to candidate Renee McGill Schultz.
Well, I'll have to admit I'm one of the guilty ones. I don't go to every city council meeting, and I don't go to every workshop. I try and stay up to date on what's going on in my community on a regular basis, and I participate in other forums. But I think the mayor made a good point. We do need to have more participation in the conversation in our community. And I will be an advocate for more town hall meetings. I love this forum. Maybe in the future we could have some more intimate settings. I have talked to our city manager, and I have asked him to possibly include with our utility bills on a quarterly basis, maybe an up-to-date newsletter. What are the goings on in our community? What are the happenings? What things might be available for us to take advantage of that we don't know about? And so utilizing a couple of good tools like that won't cost a lot of money, I think would be one of the answers. Thank you.
Thank you. The third candidate to answer this question is Mr. Johnny James.
I would tell you that I'm a proponent of participation. I have pushed for more clarity in our government and the way we run Loudon. And by doing so, I would like to invite every one of you all that sits in this audience and everybody that you know. We have 2 meetings, the open forum meetings, one with the utility board and one with city council. 2 a month. If you're there, you have a problem, you have a question, we want to hear your voice. We want to know what you have to say. And if y'all come and y'all represent yourselves and ask the questions, we'll try to seek answers for you. Because after all, we work for y'all. You forget that. You forget that you're the boss. We're just the people who make the decisions for you. So it all come from this audience and the people out in the streets to clarify what you want done and how you want it done and what manner you want it done. And we'll try to see that it gets done. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. James. Here's the third question of round number 1. Many small towns across the country have revitalized their historic districts through a Main Street program, which transforms old sections of town into a destination tourist attraction. Towns like Sweetwater have been able to attract more and more visitors to their towns through their Main Street programs with a full-time director and a budget. Would you be in favor of Loudon adopting a Main Street program? And this question goes first to Mr. Jeff Harris.
Yes, I'm very familiar with the Main Street program. One thing you have to start out with, though, is a Tennessee downtown. You have to start out with that. It's a 2-year program. We applied this year. It's very, very competitive. I think there was just 6 or 8 got awarded that recognition. You have to start with that. It's a 2-year program. You develop into that, and then you form a board and for community members and community leaders, a steering committee, and then you get a $15,000 grant to use on a project in that certain area, in the downtown area. We're going to apply again this year. It is a very competitive grant, and then after that, you can apply for the Main Street program grant. But it's a process. It's a 2-step process. You got to start out with the Tennessee Downtown program first, and then move up into the Main Street program. And if you get recognized as Main Street program, there are a lot of grant opportunities available. Just recently, Sweetwater the other day got from the Tennessee Economic Development District, they got a grant for signs and awnings, just a facade grant to put towards awnings and signs and things in their downtown. So yes, Sweetwater is very active in that, and they're ahead of the game on that. They're ahead of us. But you have to start out with the Tennessee Downtown program first, and then go to the Main Street program. But we will apply for that this year and try to get that.
Thank you. Next candidate to answer that question is Mr. John Hutton.
I am in support of the Main Street program, especially if there are grants involved. I think that anytime we can take advantage of a grant to help us out, we should favor that and try to obtain any kind of grant. I feel like, though, first, we do have an opportunity now to help ourselves. I think council could help us boost this a little bit on our own with we do have a lot of attention to downtown right now, and that's there's a lot of talk about our downtown right now, and I was very instrumental in helping obtain the Hutch property, and I think if we could revitalize that section of town. When you come across the Loudon Bridge, the left side looks great, the right side is an eyesore. And I think we need to clean up some of our areas down there first. I know we can't do it overnight, but I feel like that we can get it started. And then later on, if we are able to secure grants and push it further along, I would be in support of that.
Thank you, Mr. Hutton. The third candidate to answer that question is Mr. Mike Cartwright.
As Councilman Harris stated, I mean, he is correct. There are steps to go through before you can be in the Main Street program. Now, but also part of that Main Street program, a large portion of that is also networking with other communities throughout the state to see what they have done to revitalize their downtown. Now, to kind of touch on a question that was asked a while ago, and I hope I can do this, was the Courthouse Square revitalization project. No one mentioned that that program was specifically restricted to a certain geographic area, and those funds have to be spent downtown. They can't be spent out in the West End. They can't be spent on 72. So I would think that we could possibly use some of those funds in conjunction with some of the guidelines of the Main Street program to help revitalize our downtown. We do have a problem. The biggest problem with downtown is the interstate. You know, you have so many consumers that drive by Loudon without ever knowing that there's a restaurant here or a convenience store here. And I think that's what we've got to do, is to figure out how to get that person off of the interstate to come to downtown Loudon. But I think that without just saying, yes, I'm for the Main Street program, I think that that's something that we need to work towards and see what our fiscal responsibilities would be in that, and hopefully that we could do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cartwright. The final question for round one. Some business owners feel that the only time elected officials visit their business is during campaign season or as a part of some fundraiser. If elected, how would you change this negative perception? How do you suggest the local government become more familiar with challenges that business owners face? The first candidate to answer this question is Ms. Tammy Bivens.
Okay, well, first off, I would like to say that I have always enjoyed shopping downtown, whether it be clothes or supplies or home decor. I can walk to downtown, so that's handy too. So I've always enjoyed going into the stores. I believe that if we were to do some type of program like what the Chamber of Commerce does, they do an after-hours program where it's an open house to a business. I think that's a great idea, and we could do something like that, involve our city council in that. That would be great. I think if as business owners, if you all would enjoy something like that, I think that would be awesome. If that would be a great project to get together, and then invite the city council, invite your government to it. Use it as a way to get, you know, also just your regular citizens into your stores as well. I agree, a lot of times the only time that you're visited is when someone needs something, but that can be changed. You all offer a huge variety of products that are of great quality, and I enjoy going into the stores. I haven't been able to go in here lately because I've been knocking on doors, but I will be back around, I promise. If we can keep our money here in town, that's better for everybody. So that's where I stand on that.
Thank you, Ms. Bivens. Next to answer this question, Mr. Dennis Stewart.
Yes, I probably don't go down to business as much as I probably should. I'm not going to make any excuses, but I'm just going to tell you the hard, cold facts. I work a job from Monday through Friday, and I don't get off till 5 o'clock. When I coach football, I don't get off till 7:30 or 8 o'clock. After I watch practice film, it may be 9 o'clock by the time I get eating supper. And I don't have time to go downtown to shop downtown. I don't do any shopping really anywhere. The only day I have off is with my wife on Saturday. And I just ask for one day. That's all I ask. Me and my wife, we go do what me and my wife wants to do. but I give every day to this community, and I'm certainly about helping the downtown business, and I'll do anything for them. If you go look at the minutes of the votes, anytime they came and asked me for anything, I've always been for it. I've been for giving them 100% when they've only supposed to got 50%. I was about up-fronting it so they had to pay any money out of their pocket, you know, on this courthouse square stuff. So just be honest as I can be. I'd love to visit the downtown, but I really just, by the time you're closed when I get off, I mean, I go to eat TikTok's ice cream, and I bought pickled eggs at down there on the Mulberry Street on the corner. But, you know, really, I just, you know, in the community, I'm busy in the community and working with the community and working with the youth. And I just ask Saturday, you know, I go with my wife, and me and my wife do what everybody else do. We go watch the movies or we go out to eat, and then we come home. And that's all I can say.
Thank you, Mr. Stewart. The final candidate to answer this question will be Mr. Tim Dixon.
I'm as guilty as the next person about not going downtown and doing a whole lot of shopping. But I agree with Tammy that the downtown merchants need to put together like open house or whatever. And if you're elected to city council, those folks need to be invited down and be able to come in each one and sit down with people during that time and get more business going downtown. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dixon. And that concludes round one of our questions. I commend the candidates for their answers, and I commend you for the polite way you have received those answers. Thank you very much. We'll move on now to round two. And our first question for round two is, what about your background or experience should voters know that would encourage them to vote for you? And the first person to answer this is Mr. Mike Cartwright.
As I said in my opening statement, my background with the City of Loudon is long. I was first elected to City Council in 1989. Again, I was president of the LMPOA in the late 80s when we acquired the Lyric Theater, but did a lot of work in the Lyric Theater myself, along with Terry McGill and some of the other downtown merchants. I served with some great men on City Council. Jack Leffler, Joe Satterfield, Randall Johns, Gene Lambert, Jim Stewart, Inky Sweeney. I've served with Nancy James, Lynn Millsaps, Jimmy Parks. Don't hold that against me. But I've served on the Loudon Utility Board from 2005 through 2014. And again, I'm not up here asking for your vote because of what I have done. I think everyone that is seated at the table behind me, everyone up here has something unique and individual to offer to the City of Loudon. And I think that any person back here would make you a good council person.
30 seconds.
I just think that I would be your best choice to preserve some continuity to the past. The City of Loudon's motto used to be proud of the past, but focused on the future. And I think that is one thing that I bring that is unique to the table, is that continuity with the past. He had talked earlier about a program in 2005. Guess what? I was on City Council. I helped institute that program, helped set up the board for it. So I can look back.
Thank you, Mr. Cartwright.
And see where we've been and where we need to go. Thank you.
Next to answer that question, Mr. Tim Dixon.
like I said earlier, I was on city council from 1997 to 2001. But like Mike said, it's not about what you've done before, because those days are gone. You can't go back and redo any of that. All you can do is move forward and make things better for the city of Loudon and for the citizens. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dixon. The third candidate to answer that question, Mr. Johnny James.
I think for most of you that know me, and know me for all my life, most of my life, some of you are younger than me, some of you are my age, very few of you are my age. I'm probably the oldest one in this room. But I can tell you I started with nothing in this town. Nothing, literally nothing. I didn't own the property I worked in. I paid rent. I built that into something I have today. I own property. I own several pieces of property, several businesses, even in other counties. And I tell you that I know how to run a business. And there again, I want to repeat to you that a city government or any government is no different from a business. If it's ran properly and you surround yourself with good people, you'll be successful. You'll have a good government, and you can serve the people very well. And I think we've made a lot of strides in the last 4 years toward doing just that. We've changed some of the hiring practices, and we've changed some of the ways we do business from the top to the bottom. And we've got a city manager that I think is second to none. And I believe that, yes, I'm qualified, and I think if you look at my record, you'll know that I'm qualified. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. James. The second question for round 2 is, if you are elected, what would be the top 3 priorities on which you would want the City Council to work? The first candidate to handle that question, Mr. Jimmy Parks.
The top 3 things that I think we need right now is we need housing. I have 2 sons, had to move to Lenore City because they wanted, the type of housing that they wanted was a small lot where they could mow the yard and 2 or 3 strips down one side, 2 or 3 strips down the other side. That's what housing in Loudon needs right now. That's what the younger people want. They don't want the 2 or 3 acres you have to come in and mow. We need to get, and there is a developer right now that will buy some land, develop it, and make that, if we cut back on some of these regulations that we've got on our subdivisions now. Instead of a 100-foot lot, I think it's 100-foot frontage, I believe it is, narrow that down where these people can buy these houses and move into them. When we get rooftops, we're gonna get businesses, and we need businesses to get taxes. My second thing is, we have a problem in our police department and our fire department. We have men who have served for 20, 30, going to have at least 30 years. When they get 60-year-old, they got to quit. They don't get to keep their job. We've got to take care of these men from 60 to 65. We've got to maintain them some insurance or something, because you can't just kick those people out. They've got to have something to fill that gap there. And I'm going to work toward that happening. And the third thing is, when we developed Queener Road, that thing's been going on for 12 years, over 12 years. We got to do something out there, and that end of town's going to grow, because there'll be subdivisions go out there, and it'll grow out in that area. But that's the 3 things on my mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Parks. Next will be Mr. Jeff Harris.
Actually have a list of priorities written down here. First and foremost is the relocation of City Hall and the customer service building out on 72. We need to get that completed. I've brought with me tonight out on the table a blueprint of City Hall. If you'd like to see that, how it's going to be laid out, that's a top priority. We got to get that finalized. We're in the midst of that now. They haven't started on the City Hall yet, but the customer service building, they have started on that. We got to finish that up. Also, I'd like to start on the Hutch property. We need to get something going on the Hutch property. Let's get the asbestos remediated out of there. Let's get the storage tanks out. Let's just get something going down. Let's get them buildings tore down, and let's get some green space down there. We don't have to worry yet about trying to build that up or commercialize that area of town. Let's just get something going. Let's get that cleaned up, get the riverfront cleaned up. I think that would go a long way. And then the third thing is we've identified streets to be paved, and there's a lot into that, why it hadn't been paved yet and why streets hadn't been paved. I know that's probably going to be a question that comes up, but there's a lot of dynamics that happened over the last 2-3 years that have stopped us from being able to do a lot of paving. We've got those roads identified, and we are going to get some roads paved, and that will be a top priority, I'm sure, among many of the council members. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. The third candidate to answer the question would be Mr. Tim Brewster.
I think we're probably going to all hit on about the same subject. My number one priority is we got to start taking care of our taxpayers. We got to give them something for their money. The roads in Loudon City, there's no excuse for them being in the shape they are. We have to, number one, Highland Avenue, we need a priority list, which they've developed in the last 15 to 20 days, a 5-year plan, which we did not have. I'm totally in agreement with that. And the carting machine, I mean the Loudon Fire and Police Department, Jimmy Parks brought that up. That is a serious issue for our city. These guys, to me, these guys put their life on the line for 30 to 40 years, and then when they reach the age of 60, it's like, thank you for your service, goodbye. Now, what don't happen and what we have the funding for, the money's there. It's just a matter of city council approving it, is pay that little gap insurance to get these guys over the hump till they can start drawing their Social Security and Medicare. And my third priority is Highway 72 development. You know, to me, there's no excuse why we have one grocery store and why there's not more businesses out on Highway 72. It ain't up to the Economic Development Agency to reach out to businesses. I feel it's city council and mayor's responsibility, and I believe we're going to do it, is reach out to businesses to recruit them to get them in here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brewster. The third question for round number 2. The Hutch property was purchased 2 years ago by the city and/or utilities, but there is no sign of development. This property continues to be an extreme eyesore, and taxpayers and ratepayers are starting to wonder if the Hutch land purchase was a waste of money. Assuming it will be a long time before investors buy the land and do something with it, would you be in favor of using city and/or utility funds to immediately demolish the buildings and clear the site? Mr. Dennis Stewart.
Yes, as far as I'm concerned, the Hutch property is the answer to it all. It really is. It's the answer to this downtown problem because, you know, the first thing of retail is traffic, rooftops, and income. Okay, that's the key right there. When that Hutch property is developed, it's going to be a multi-use facility. It's going to have housing, and it's going to have some office space, we hope, and it's also going to have some riverfront for recreation purposes, okay? So it's going to be multi-use, and I think it's going to bring the traffic count that we need for our downtown. I really do. As far as being able to demolish it or whatever, first of all, most of that time they're talking about the 2 years was spent just doing a study to see if it was even feasible. You know, who knew what was in the river? And to everybody's amazement, it came back clean. And I think that was just an amazing thing. So that's where all the time has been. It's been trying to do that study to make sure we wouldn't buy some hazardous property. So, you know, just give it time. We're looking right now and things are moving. And as far as the question, would I be about using city utilities funds to knock down what's ugly? I absolutely would. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stewart. The second candidate to answer this question is Mr. Jim Greenway. If the sound man would play Mr. Greenway's cut number 3. Mr. Greenway, your question is, the Hutch property was purchased 2 years ago by the city, but there is no sign of development. This property continues to be an extreme eyesore, and taxpayers are starting to wonder if the Hutch land purchase was a waste of money. Assuming it will be a long time before investors buy the land and do something with it, would you be in favor of using city or utilities funds to immediately demolish the buildings and clear the site?
One misconception is the city did not purchase the Hutch property. The utilities purchased the Hutch property. Two different pools of money. One of the reasons it hasn't developed quickly is it takes time to find a developer who we could trust to put the proper development on the property. We have people looking now as far as demolition. We have to remove some asbestos first. We have fuel tanks in the ground we have to remove. It's just a slow process. And again, we want to find a quality developer. We have had people contact us that are interested in developing. There are some things that are going on now with our Economic Development Office that we hope will pay out. But until we get those issues solved, or not solved, but completed as far as the cleanup, the asbestos, we won't be able to begin taking the building down. But we will have a quality development there one day. It will take a little time.
Thank you, Mr. Greenway. I apologize to the audience that the questions are being repeated on the recordings, but we wanted you to know for certain that we had asked the same questions of the people who were being recorded as we're asking the candidates who are here on the podium. The third candidate to answer that question was also recorded. It's Mr. Buzz Hendricks. If you would play Mr. Hendricks's cut number 3. Mr. Hendricks, your question is this. The Hutch property was purchased 2 years ago by the city, but there is no sign of development yet. This property continues to be an extreme eyesore, and taxpayers are starting to wonder if the Hutch land purchase was a waste of money. Assuming it will be a long time before investors buy the land and do something with it, would you be in favor of using city or utilities funds to immediately demolish the buildings and clear the site?
I don't think we should demolish it. I think maybe we could, if we could sell it, I'll have to look into it in the papers and everything, see if it's good for the city, whatever's good for the city. But also, if businesses would want to come out and use it as headquarters or something, we could, let them rent it and stuff like that, or even condos. A lot of people told me that would be a good idea for condos, but no, I don't think we should demolish it. I just think that'd be a waste of our money either. So, no, I think we should keep it, maybe sell it, if we could, make a profit, or even rent offices out for it.
Thank you, Mr. Hendricks.